Good morning. It is Monday, November 2nd, 2020. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome as you come in. I have no intent or purpose in doing a live stream tomorrow morning. I think we'll be watching the situation as the election reaches its final few days. Tomorrow kind of being the apex, but then of course with the way things are planned, this is going to drag out for some time. So I thought, well, I didn't really have anything planned to give this morning, but I thought I'd come on anyway. And I do have a few thoughts for what they're worth. Black coffee cup this morning. It is caramel cream. Black, I thought, kind of fit the occasion. I didn't want to, talk about the Second Amendment this morning, and I didn't want to say, "See, I told you so" with my other cup. So I just figured this would do the job. It's a very somber time for me. I'm not sure about you all. You notice I'm not in my studio. I thought I'd better sit in a little more relaxed atmosphere. I have one of the quotes from the Bible behind me, and I have a picture over here of Venice. The reason why I have this picture, by the way, when I was deployed in 2001 after 9/11, that following winter, I took out two weeks leave, and I met my wife in Venice and spent it was actually 10 days with her in Venice. And this is an original print here. Not a print, it's an original drawing, an original piece of art. So I don't keep it there because of that, of course, even though it was a very sentimental investment. I really keep it there because it reminds me of that trip with her. And to try to keep my feet on the ground so I don't get too out in the realms of the esoteric and nebulous space that I have a tendency to do sometime. But this morning, I'm going to take you on a little ride into that esotericism, because the other side is playing it out. Whether you believe it or not, and you've heard me say that before, they're definitely playing it out. Before I go too far, let me make it perfectly clear. I have not said what I have said about President Trump because I'm trying to get people to vote for Biden. I'm going to say it plainly as I can. Biden absolutely manifests and represents plain evil. Everything he stands for represents, manifests, gross, plain, satanic evil. All right? Out in the open. He is out in the open, and the entire left is. And they've been raging and gnashing their teeth now on us for many, many years, but particularly the last 3, and especially in the last 8 or 9 months. So no one better try to construe out of anything that I say that I want people to vote for Biden instead of Trump. No, it's that the entire system is corrupt. And people say, well, then what do we do, Roy? Well, if you're a Christian, you withdraw. You come out of Babylon and you have nothing more to do with its lies and deceptions, so that you're free of its sins. Partake not of her sins. Come out of her. So I've done that as best I can, and I've encouraged others to do so. Now the question comes up on Trump. So, as most of you know, I backed him originally and tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. You've heard me talk like this many, many times. But it has progressively gone down the road of deception, loss of our Bill of Rights, and frankly, tyranny. Now, a lot of people might say, I do actually support the Constitution. It is the administrative form of our government, codified into the supreme law of the land. But it does have its weaknesses, and one of the weaknesses that it has is that it said that the government couldn't do this and couldn't infringe on that, including the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, but never explained what the consequences of officials would be for denying those rights. That was left up for Congress to put in with statutes. That was probably a weakness that really hurt us. But be that as it may, I don't mind finding another form of the supreme law of the land. And frankly, no, not the Noahide laws. Okay, no. No. And I know that there are Masonic problems with the creation of the country, but people forget that there were two sides of that Masonic battle, the Scottish Rite and the York Rite Masons. So not all Masonic things necessarily are evil, any more than the rainbow, which is God's symbol, was usurped by Lucifer for his LGBTQ business. You see how that works? It's not necessarily the symbolism that's evil, it's who is using it and for what purposes. I won't go down that road other than to say that the entire thing in our government structure, in our laws, and it's, to me, it's inviolate, and I've said it from the very beginning. The Bill of Rights needs to be inviolate, not open to interpretation, spelled out and defended just the way they're written. I would like some clarifications, but when you ask for that, you always open it up for interpretations that are deleterious to those exact same rights. There are people that are much more articulate than I am. I can do public speaking, I can talk here and things, but there are some people that you really, really ought to take the time to allow them to give you their thoughts through their speech. I won't name all those, I've said a lot of them in the past. But I think that all of us who are speaking these similar things are all of the same spirit, and that's what's really important, to know that there is a second, a third, a fourth witness that is looking at and considering and illustrating the problems that we're facing, the real problems, the ones that are hidden beneath the surface. So our government doesn't support the Bill of Rights. It pretends to, but it doesn't. So it's already become illegitimate. And it's such an evil system. I saw John Cardillo this morning. Cardillo, I guess is how you say his name. He's a former police officer, New York, I think. Lives in Florida now. I follow him. He's very pro-Trump. But, he says the FBI needs to be disbanded. I've been saying that for how long? But it never will be, not until the entire system's destroyed, and I'm afraid that's where we're going. So what is my real message today, I think? My oldest son is very wise, and I called him up yesterday and I said, I'm in a fog a little bit here, son. I want to get your feelings because you and I don't want to I don't want to pat him on the back too hard. I need him to think and not be too comfortable, but I said, out of all the people I know, you are the most pure. And I'm asking for your guidance. I'm asking God first. I do that many, many times a day. As a matter of fact, I often do not cease to have a prayer in my heart of one form or another. But it never hurts to get that second witness, right? So I talked to him about that. And he reminded me of something that he said a long time ago, and I know it's true. And I didn't think that there was any way we were going to get out of it. But he said, well, Dad, Trump is doing exactly what God wants him to do. But, Dad, that doesn't mean that he's doing it in a righteous way. He's not doing it for the reason that you would think he's doing it. In other words, if you think back when Israel was one nation, back before the Babylonian captivity and all that, they actually did split. They split into the southern kingdom. Good morning, Nancy. By the way, did you see the text and the DMs I sent you? I had a guy come down on me yesterday complaining about you, and I just unleashed on him. But I didn't do it too much because I know you can take care of yourself. So all right. At any rate, so what occurred is that that split into the southern kingdom of Judah and the northern kingdom of Israel. And the Assyrians came down because the northern kingdom, according to the story, by the way, historically there's some problems with this, but I'm just giving it to you the way it is in the Bible. The Assyrians came down and took away the 10 tribes. Didn't get 100% of the people. A lot of them were still there, but the kingdom itself was broken up, and who they did take into captivity spread out all over the world. We know that story. The point is that the Assyrians were not godly people. They weren't. But they provided a tool by which God could discipline his own people who had rebelled and sinned against him. You see that? So, rushing now to our current situation, our current time, the United States has been very wicked for many, many years. The principles weren't necessarily wrong. At least we mentioned God, in our founding documents. A lot of people could say, well, which God? And that's a legitimate question. And I always answer that with the same answer, and that is, by their fruits you shall know them, because that's what Jesus commanded us to do. Judge that you be not judged, or judge people after the same manner you would want to be judged. But by their fruits you shall know them. And unfortunately, we haven't cared too much about that as a nation. We've become an empire contrary to what we envisioned ourselves to be. So the country's been going down this, not just a slippery slope, it's been an out of control train that's lost its braking system and is headed down a mountain, and it's going to hit here terribly soon. We've already suffered a lot of the damage. And understandably, I'm not even going to say constitutionalist anymore, because I think that puts God in a second place, even though people don't realize that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. We thought that we've been praying to God for help, but as individuals and as a nation, we weren't really serious. We did it from the point of view of prosperity, not of changing hearts and minds back to the foundational principles that should be our prime makeup, that God intended us to be in his image. That wasn't just a metaphor. We were to be gods in the flesh. And that ticks off a lot of Christians, and the Jews consider it a blasphemy, but I didn't say it. The scriptures said it. I don't find that difficult at all. However, as children, we are to obey our parents. We are to honor our father and our mother. And that we have not done. So we realized that something was wrong with our country. But we also realized that we just didn't seem to have the power to do anything about it. So we prayed, and rather than changing ourselves, which is really the point, Michael, Jonah of Nineveh, did a wonderful sermon on Twitter not too long ago, a few days ago, and he talked about suffering and how suffering is actually a gift. Well, that doesn't mean I like to see it. And I've had my fair share, and I know there are people in the world that have had horrible things that they've had to go through. But it gives you empathy, it gives you understanding, it kind of sets things in their proper perspective and order. And we as a country haven't suffered. As a matter of fact, the wars that we've said that we had to fight, we were pretty much removed from, right? There's other places in the world, and we were told we had to go there to save our wonderful country and, protect and defend freedom and all of that, when that was all nonsense. All of it was nonsense, but we swallowed it. And why? Because we were offered prosperity. Throughout this whole time, the carrot has been, you'll get more oil, you'll be able to buy more things, you'll be able to have that 2-car garage and watch TV, watch the Super Bowl. Just let us go and do this, and you'll prosper. That's been the carrot. The liberty thing was just thrown in there for, as a mask for what they were really doing. I saw it firsthand, not just in the army, but in the police department. That it even got to there, this deception. And I knew many years ago that we were headed down the wrong road. But at any rate, we've been praying and asking God amiss, I'm afraid. It says, pray to God, but don't ask amiss. Don't ask God something that's really not what you want, because he can see into your heart and know what you're really asking for. I could tell you some stories about that turned out really bad for me. And I still haven't totally learned my lesson. But we've been asking that our freedom would come back without really defining what that is. We've asked that our economy come back, that we be able to prosper again. And God does say that if you do what he says to do, he will, heal your land. There is truth to that. But you cannot ask amiss. And I think that the manifestation of what's happened has shown us, if we are honest with ourselves, that we have asked amiss. It's obvious. One of the things that I demanded of Trump when he came in was to fulfill his promises. Jail the crooks, for one. And you've heard me say it before, and a lot of other people have. The day after he becomes president-elect, he talks about how good the Clintons are, when just the day before he was saying how criminal they are. And it was all downhill from there. And I'm not going to go through the whole list of things, but what Trump did was he put out a persona that we thought that he would actually act according to, and he didn't. And I gave him the benefit of the doubt, as I've said for a long time. Possibly that he had the system against him and all that, but then too many things, which again I'm not going to enumerate here, just didn't add up to him really being serious. And I'm just not going to enumerate them. If you want to know what they are, go back and look at my channel or my Twitter account. Go look at Mark Pantano. Go look at Headlines with a Voice. Go look at Jonah of Nineveh on Twitter. And there are others. A lot that I could answer to and talk about. But I'm not going to do that. That's not my purpose this morning. I think the time for this testament against this evil government, and particularly against Trump, is now at the point where the judgment is now about ready to come. So why do I say that? Again, Trump came in and he didn't say we're going to set us right. He talked about God, but then he didn't do the things that would entail. No, somebody throw O'Connell off of here for me. If one of you um, mods are here, Tony O'Connell, whatever his name is, I'm not retracting anything. You haven't heard the punchline yet, but I don't think you need to, so you're out of here if somebody can find you and throw you off. Thank you, Nancy. So that's what we wanted. We wanted prosperity. And Trump offered that more than anything else. And then other things happened that I've listed and others have listed that didn't go along with the changing of the heart. We traded our birthright for a bowl of porridge. That's the metaphor that I have used, and that comes right out of Jacob and Esau and their little agreement. And that's what we did. We played Esau, and we traded our birthright for a bowl of porridge. And then we still wanted our birthright, but we sold it. And we trusted in a man rather than trusting in the principles of God that we were made to be in an image of. So now, here we are. We've been locked down for 8 months, off and on. These restrictions, and of course they've spread all over the world. China's free. Wuhan's out without masks, without anything, running around enjoying life. And here you are, muzzled, threatened with vaccinations. You can't go to the store. You can't have more than 6 people at your Thanksgiving dinner or whatever the local restrictions are. And Trump didn't do that. The governors did it. No, it came out of the guidelines from the White House. And we've even caught them from the White House saying that these restrictions need to be enforced with fines. And of course, that would mean jail too. That's coming out of the White House, despite what Trump says at his rallies. So here we are, and massive amounts of people, because of the evil that Joe Biden represents, and we all know that because that's so easy to see. You don't even have to be a good person in your heart to see. You can be an evil person and see what Joe Biden stands for. That's easy. But what isn't easy is recognizing a deception that is just as evil, but can wear a different face. Do the same things even, but because it's presented differently, as Marshall McLuhan said, the medium is the message. And the medium can tell you a message opposite to what it's actually telling you. And that's exactly what Trump has done, if you are honest with yourselves, if we are honest with ourselves. So everything that's happened, the craziness in the Democratic Party, the craziness in Antifa and BLM, the craziness in Joe Biden and in Hillary Clinton, the craziness in China, the craziness in California, no matter, all the craziness in the world has been a devilish and demonic drama to push you towards a false king. Jonah Nineveh is very right when he talks about the verses in Kings and in Samuel in the Bible about the people wanting a king rather than doing righteous things. That they can blame the king, that the king can lead them into battle and all of that. And then Samuel explained to them what would happen when this king was made and how he would turn on them and use them. And that's exactly what's happening. It's even worse now than it was before Trump came into office. You are in more debt now to the bankers than you have ever been. But people don't see that because it's invisible. it's the shiny object. I'm going to give you $1,200 or $600 a week or whatever, but I'm not telling you how you're going to pay that back. And how are you going to pay that back? Notice Trump has never talked about the Great Reset. Never. Why? Why, when it stands above us, like our head in the guillotine and the blade ready to drop, has he never talked about it? And I have my good Republican insider tell me, oh, Roy, he's just going to break the system up and all that. Yeah, okay. But you're going to be paying the price. Don't kid yourselves. So Trump does have a purpose. I'm getting back to my son here, okay? Trump is doing God's will. Like the Assyrians did God's will. Like Judas Iscariot, according to the extant part of the story, did God's will. And I'm going to tell you what that is, because it's plainly manifest. You have been sold for 30 pieces of silver. You are in God's image. As imperfect as you and I are, we have been sold for the 30 pieces of silver. And to you, President Trump, King of the world, what you are about to do quickly. He read the snake poem again, and he said, I was asked by some people to read this again. See, they even have to give you 2 or 3 witnesses about what they're doing. So he read it again, and I know people say, well, that's not what he was talking about. You don't understand these people. You don't understand them like some of us do. That was pretty much the last of the public programming, so that all of these people can flock to him, because they do want change, they do. But they don't want to change themselves. They want prosperity over principle. And that's not what we're about. So all of these people, just like it says in Revelation, the whole world will wonder after the beast. And I've already talked about the wound, and it's really the plague and all that stuff. I've already talked about that. I'm not going to rehash it. That's an arguable point, Slick, of whether he's the Antichrist or not, and I'm not going to go there today. All you have to do is look at what is going on. I'll let you make up your own mind, because that's what it's about at this point. It's not me trying to convince you to believe or to think the way I do. Pardon me a second. That's not it at all, because this is the great test. Just a few minutes ago, I was saying that so many people look at Trump because they know Biden's not good and Hillary, but they've turned to Trump. And what does it say? God shall send them strong delusion that they believe a lie. That if it were possible, the very elect would be deceived, if it were possible. Now the question is, how do you know that you're an elect? And Jonah of Nineveh gets into this, and he talks about DNA, and he talks about who the father is and who the father of the evil ones are. And I'm not going to get into that here. But it's true. Evil DNA is here. And there is a father for many of us, and then there's a father for those other guys. And it's plainly manifest in how they operate. So here we are, this massive rush to Trump, that the whole world would wonder after that head of the beast. And it's a phenomenon. Even Nigel Farage calls it a phenomenon. So there are only going to be a few that really see it for what it is. And it's a painful place to be because we're in the minority. And I'm not saying I have it perfectly. No, no, not at all. But I have an assurance that I haven't got it too terribly wrong either. So let's talk about some other esoteric things that Trump has thrown out there that maybe you haven't noticed. I saw on Twitter yesterday, Julianne, I think it was, asked about the numbers for the campaigns. And Trump's, of course, is 88022, and Biden's is 30330. Now you might say, all right, we don't want to hear this. This is getting down in the weeds, and give me a minute. You might find something very important here because it's something that Trump has repeated over and over again. Not so much this campaign, but it's still an issue. Let's talk about Biden first. Let's just get him out of the way. He freely admits that he's evil. He talks evil. He talks about taking your guns. He talks about killing the babies. He talks about taking away your car. He talks about taking away your food. He talks about putting you in cities and the Agenda 21 and all of that. He talks about that openly and supports it and tells you that's what he is for. He's blatantly obvious evil. You cannot even give him a thought of support. Not in the least. His number is 30330. A lot of you already know what that is. It's a distillate of 666. What you do is you take 2020 and you divide it by 666 and you get 30330. It's one of those decimals that keeps going. So it's a distillate of 666. Okay. Roy, wow, you're really stretching. I'm not the only one that's seen this, okay, and has talked about it. It does mean something. You have to understand your enemy, and your enemy is Lucifer. Your enemy is Satan. It is Halel ben Shakar. It is the AI, which is a modern golden calf, a creation of man's hands that man is now worshiping, and it has the spirit of Lucifer. You would know him as Lucifer behind it. And yes, I've talked about MAGA. I talked about MAGA some months ago, that it's in Greek and in Latin, it means sorcerer or warlock or witch. Well, the feminine, then there's the masculine form, but it served its purpose. I've already talked about that. So let's talk about the numbers. I just gave you Biden's. I'm going to push him aside. Obviously, he's the literal mouthpiece of Satan to say this is how bad it's going to be if you select me. But there's a deception going on. By deception shalt thou wage war. Anybody know that one? So let's talk about Trump's number. He's known to be the 88. Monty's talked about that. But the campaign number is what? 88022. We know that Trump understands Kabbalah, and there's a good Kabbalah and there's a bad. I'm not going to get into that. I've talked about it before, okay? The type of Kabbalah that showed up during the Talmudic period is a problem. Yes, it is. But prior to that, a form of it called the Hekkelot was how the prophets operated. That's all I'm going to say about it. I'm not going to go into it any deeper than that. But let's talk about why Trump would use the number 88022. We know that 8 is a symbol on its side of eternity, of infinity. So what is he saying about himself with that number? Keep that in your mind. And let's go to the 22. Does anybody know? I noticed that Julianne, or it may have been Truth is Master, I'm not sure, on Twitter, but they talked about that all these things seem to be multiples of 11. That's definitely part of it, but the greater message is, what is the 2-2? Does anybody know what the 22nd letter in the Hebrew alphabet is? Anybody know? Somebody tell me here what the 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet is. I'll give you all a second because I know this it has a lapse in it, you know. Tau. There you go. Good. Tau. And what is the Tau? Well, I won't wait for you to answer. The Tau is the cross. We've talked about how Israel has put up Trump as the king of Israel. How the rabbis have mentioned that, he's a lot like Cyrus, but now maybe he's a lot like the Messiah. Which one doesn't matter, the Messiah ben Joseph or the Messiah ben David. It doesn't matter. He's the Messiah. Most of them push towards Joseph, but I'm not going to get into that detail here this morning. What I am going to tell you is this: he was on the Abrahamic covenant coin, right? The Abraham Accord coin, all that weird symbolism on there. He was on the coin with Netanyahu. It was one of the sons of light. They've called him, he had the Cyrus coin. He has a place in just below Mount Hermon, where, by the way, the fallen angels landed, according to Enoch and some other things, landed there. And he has a place in the Golan Heights there, named after him, with his typical spelling in Israel with a tet, and the tet is the number 9, or the serpent, not with the tav. And yet here, in his little presentation of his campaign's numerology, he has the tav there, combined with the infinity, emphasized twice, the 8 and the 8, infinity twice. What's he saying? He's saying that he's the eternal Christ. That's exactly what he's saying. But there's another level. 8 in the Hebrew language is what? Anybody know what the 8th letter of the Hebrew language are? Remember, we're looking at this from a Kabbalistic point of view, which Trump is, and so is Kushner. The Chabad Lubavitchers are very much Talmudic Kabbalists, not Israelite, prophetic, Hekkelot, or Kabbalah, but Talmudic Kabbalah. What is the 8th letter in the Hebrew alphabet? Does anybody know? That might be a tough one. It's chet, not hate, chet. Transliteration would be C-H-E-T. Hate. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, Dorian, you got it. Yeah, that's close enough. What does it mean? What does it mean? Does anybody know what it means? This is going to freak you out. Trump has said, we're going to have that big, beautiful wall. What would a narcissist say about himself? He's big, he's beautiful, right? Everything's about me. I don't have to repent. I don't feel like I have to repent. I believe in God, but I don't have to repent. I don't have to ask for forgiveness. I'm almost as famous as Jesus Christ. Oh, he's more famous, but he still made the comparison. But we're going to have that big, beautiful wall. He and as Jonah of Nineveh has pointed out, and Mark Pantano, there is no way, I think Legal Man did it as well on Twitter, there is no way that Trump could have built that wall because it would be in courts for years with the private land. He and his team there in the White House knew that. So if they weren't talking about the wall on the southern border, that big, beautiful wall, what was he really telling you? That you're going to accept him as your Savior. He is the big, beautiful wall. He says so in his numbers here. and he doubles it. I am not just a wall, an 8, but I am a big, beautiful wall. I'm going to emphasize it, 8, 8. It's exactly what it is. Now, if he was a door, he'd be a Dalet. That's the letter. That's the 4th letter. Yeah, everything's tremendous. Everything's big. Everything's fantastic. Everything's wonderful. It's like he doesn't know any other words in the language. He's speaking to you in an 8th grade level. Oh, he's capable of more than that. And he's doing the right thing as far as how you deal with the public, speaking at an 8th grade level. Because he wanted to bring as many people into his fold, into their submission to him as their savior that he could possibly get. Under him, science has always had an argument with religion. Back in the medieval times, the church and science made an agreement. Do you all know about this? The church said, we're going to take care of the spiritual side. We're going to rule over the conscience, the consciousness, the spiritual aspect. Science, you can handle the physical. We'll make that agreement with you. And science always pointed out that religion is something that you have to believe in. And if you don't believe in it, then you can be excommunicated. You can be put aside, right? Even the religions do that, right? You don't believe the way they tell you to believe, not the way God speaks to you, but the way they tell you to believe, and they can discipline you under their church laws, right? I've suffered that. What has science said? The point at first was, we're going to embrace the scientific method. We're going to allow people to question. We're going to allow people to say, I'm not certain that's true. Prove it to me. Peer review, etc., right? Why is that all of a sudden changed? Why is it now that we have to believe the science? And then the natural question to follow that is, what science are you talking about? And why am I required to believe it when scientific method means it has to be open to what? That it can be repeated. The results can be repeated by others. But now that's no longer something you're allowed to do. Science, it's not real science, but the promotion of the science of Fauci and of the New World Order and of the WHO is now the new religion. It is the New World Order religion. And it's not based on the scientific method. Who did that happen under in this country? Why are you wearing masks today? Why are you under restrictions? Why were you told that we were just going to have 2 weeks to flatten the curve, which in itself was ridiculous? Why is it that masks are being worn now at this time of the year when Fauci wrote a report back several years ago that Dr. What's her name now? Huber, Dr. Huber. I talked about this several months ago, and I talked about it a few weeks ago. That he wrote a report saying that the people died not from the virus, the Spanish flu virus. They died because they were wearing masks that act as a petri dish to grow bacteria, and people died of bacterial pneumonia. So we're going to have a lot of deaths this winter because Fauci has set it up. And who allowed him to do that? Who put him out in front of the country so that he could have plausible deniability? It wasn't my fault. Notice Satan does that too. Satan always blames somebody else. The narcissist, probably the supreme narcissist is Satan, Lucifer, Hillel ben Shakar. It's always somebody else's fault. Another indication of who Trump really follows. He always has his scapegoat. He always has somebody else to blame. Plausible deniability. I didn't do it, they did it. I'm just being a victim. They're picking on me. The DS picks on me. The FBI picks on me. The CIA picks on me. The Democrats pick on me. I can't get anybody in my White House to do what I tell them to do. I'm acting this out. But you see how silly this is. That's satanic, ladies and gentlemen. Little children do it. You go up and you say, hey, you find some food on the floor. Who did this? No, I didn't do it. They did it, right? In some cases, it's innocence. It's learning about taking responsibility. Trump never learned that. He's been supported by the Rothschilds. And I'll say it here. I don't care if they throw me off. Wilbur Ross helped to bail him out. And now look where Wilbur Ross is. He didn't drain the swamp, ladies and gentlemen. He embraced it. And he used it to help you and me and everybody to think that he was opposed by the deep state when he has not been. He has used it to his advantage. And you're seeing the results with the crowds, the masses of people that are flocking to him to save them. Under him, science has become the religion. And he says that he has a wonderful vaccine, a safe vaccine. He even said it the other day in a tweet. He said, this vote comes down between two things, a safe vaccine or a lockdown under Biden. Like that's really a choice. Do you see how this works? And that's exactly the choice he's giving you. You will take his vaccine. He doesn't have to mandate it. The corporations, the states, the governors, your place of employment, the cops, they'll be the ones that enforce it. He can always claim he has nothing to do with it. But I think that's all going to change here pretty soon. I think he is going to very quickly now reveal who he really is. Once this election gets done, not that the Democrats aren't going to contest it because they're evil. They're fighting. See, the evil fights against the evil. The wicked destroy the wicked. They want that seat in Lucifer's throne. So they're going to try to take it from him. What does Revelation say? Hey, we can't make war against this guy. Who can make war against him? That doesn't make the Dems good. That's just typical of how they fight. It's like mafioso against mafioso, as I've pointed out on Twitter. You're the target. They're just fighting over the territory, but you're the ultimate target. Those numbers mean something, ladies and gentlemen. They weren't picked by mistake. They aren't random. The numbers that we keep seeing come up with all of these the task forces have gone out there and they've rescued this many kids and that many kids. And it's always numbers like 33 and 17. Do you know how statistically impossible that is, that those numbers keep showing up unless they were done by design? They don't have to tell you, the Luciferians don't have to tell you exactly what they're doing. They just have to send it to you in message form, in a code form. That's all they're required to do. And if you don't have discernment, you're not going to see it. Here's one for you. We've had all of these pedophiles arrested, and we've had all these children rescued, right? Has anybody seen any stories about these children being reunited with their families? Has anybody seen at least one of these? Daniel Grant, you have? Anybody else? Hey, Felicia, how you doing? I see you're here. Sorry I didn't notice you there before. I haven't seen any. Not one. Some of you say that, one of you have said that you have. Well, good for you. Well, I haven't seen any. Don't you find that a little odd? I guess I didn't tell you what hate is, did I? Well, I meant to. Somebody's putting up it means, they're saying here it's an enclosure. Yeah. Hate is a fence, a barrier, a wall. And you use a barrier so that you can make an enclosure. Okay, so the number 8 is hate, in Hebrew, which means wall, barrier, or fence. So when I told you that Trump said, sorry if I missed that point. Sometimes I assume that my audience knows where I'm going. So I'm plainly stating it here now. He said that he is the big, beautiful wall. He is the number 8, the big, beautiful wall. 8 is a barrier, a fence, and a wall. And when you put those barriers and fences up in certain ways, you have enclosures. Absolutely. Okay? So it's not just an enclosure. I just wanted to make sure everybody understands where we're going with that. Yeah, we are in the enclosure. Yeah, they fenced us in. They've walled us in. Yeah, and they're going to force you to take the vaccine if you want to get out of that wall. And actually, that's not even going to get you out of the wall. It's just going to let you come in and out from time to time. So yeah, he built a wall around you. He put you in the enclosure. Very good. Yeah, very good. All right. So plainly, you can't vote for Biden because that's manifest evil. So you're forced to go for Trump because you think there's no other alternative, but there is another alternative. And I choose that alternative. I'm not voting for either one of them because I don't want to lend my consent. Well, Roy, that's not going to change anything. They're still going to, you might as well just go along with the program. I choose not to. The lesser of two evils is not a choice in my book. And unless we stand on principle at this point, the country's going to be destroyed, which it needs to be. Trump is performing God's function. He's destroying the United States of America because of what it has done and continues to do. He is the Assyrian. He is the Philistine. It's tragic, but that's where it's going. So I'm not going to go along with it. Because not voting for Biden, which is the right thing, really won't make a difference because Trump is on that same path and worse. All the world, and he causeth all the world to wonder after the beast. They built an emperor god. Somebody said, well, no, that was just from a video game. That's not the point. The point is they put his head on it. And they represent it as the Emperor God Trump. He put his hands on the luminous sphere in Mecca. Did you see that? He has not cut the corners of his beard. That's why he folds his hair behind him. They say it's because of his scalp surgery. No, he's been like this for some time. Those are so he doesn't cut the edges of his beard. If he let his hair down, he would have this long right here, and he could tassel them, braid them. Nothing wrong with I'm not poking fun at the Jews or saying they're necessarily bad. What I'm saying is that he has lied to you about who he is. He does believe he is the Messiah of Israel, the King of Israel. Messiah actually means anointed prince. It doesn't mean king. King is Melech. Messiah is an anointed one. He believes, and he said it. Didn't he look up at the sky one day? Everybody thought he was just joking. I'm the anointed one. I'm the chosen one, which means the same thing. I'm the chosen one. I'm the anointed one. He is, in his own mind, the Messiah. And Israel, there are those in Israel who say that he is. There are even Christians that are saying that. But he's a liar. So, he's going to be elected, just like I said. And he's going to be in power probably since he came out of the hospital for 40 and 2 months. 1,260 plus, there's some other days that are added in there, about 1,335. But it's probably just going to be the 1260. He's going to be in power for that long. And it is going to be a nightmare, ladies and gentlemen. It is going to be worse than any horror movie that you have ever witnessed. Remember how the horror movies go? Do you remember, let's see, it was the Alfred Hitchcock's movie, Psycho? You remember how that worked? Here comes this nice, pretty young woman. She needs a place to stay. And she's invited in and given a key to the house, basically. Oh, we'll take good care of you. You're going to enjoy yourself here. And then what happens? And The Omen, another example. Boy, this is so much like The Omen. I made that point out some time ago. Yeah, it's almost, I mean, other than the fact that it was the son, of course, in The Omen, who was the actual Lucifer. But this is close enough. Another mistake, and I asked Mark Pantana to explain this. Maybe Legal Man could do it, and maybe I think Mark's getting worn out, and I certainly understand. People are saying, well, FEMA's in control. Trump signed it, all the law says he's not in control. No. Trump delegated the authority. He didn't abrogate the authority. Okay, there's a big difference. All right, if the Q people and others want to say that Trump is no longer in power, then you have just defeated everything that you've ever claimed, that Trump was going to fix everything. Right? If you're going to say that he doesn't have the power over FEMA, then you're admitting that the plan pretty much sucked, aren't you? Well, just so you know, I was in the government. I know about delegation of authority. It's not abrogation of authority. He is responsible for this. He could tell FEMA today to stop. He could tell the whole government to stop. For instance, you go into the VA, you have to wear a mask. He knows the mask is not working. He knows that the mask is a petri dish for bacterial pneumonia and other problems. He has control over the VA, ladies. Now, all he has to do is order the VA to say no more mask wearing except, in the usual places like surgery, etc. He hasn't done that. And the governors are following suit. Why? Well, Trump said it in his speech the other day. They get money, $2,000 for every patient that dies, right? How much? Up to $52,000 for intubation and all this baloney on the respiratory machines. But rather than letting his national emergency, which funds all of that, go away on the 25th of October, he extended it to January 20th. He is the one that has put the enclosure around you. So that's right. 8, the wall, the fence, the barrier has been erected not on the southern border, but around you and around your family, with the threat that if you don't do what you're told, you will never get out. You may just die in place. That's coming. That's all I got for you this morning. I'm not going to be on tomorrow, okay? Like I said, we need to watch what's happening. We need to witness to what's happening. Jonah of Nineveh, Michael, he's great. He says, we're going to talk after the selection, Roy. He knows that and I put it up the other day on Twitter. I said, to the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this, there's no light in them. And don't cast your pearls before swine. The testimony is done as far as I'm concerned. And the country is going to make its they're going to think they'll make their election tomorrow, but it's really a selection. They've all been forced that way. This has been a grand deception. There's nothing really more than it that any of us can do. Why haven't I been pulled yet? Yeah, somebody asked that. I'm going to ask a question to the rest of the people in here. Does anybody know why I've been censored? I've been shadow banned Oh, absolutely. But I want to ask, does anybody know why I have not been taken off of Twitter? Well, Twitter and YouTube. Does anybody know why? I've talked about it before for you people that want to make an issue of it. Oh, if you were telling the truth, they would have pulled you. Okay. Why haven't they pulled me? Does anybody know why? Does anybody know why? To see who watches you? Yeah, but that's not my doing. Not a clue, Linda Gordon? Nobody knows. Nobody knows? Really? Because you're CIA? I've been against the government since even before I went in the Army in 1976. I pointed out the terrible things it was doing before that. I took on one of the biggest churches in the entire world, the Mormon Church, for their lies and deceptions. I took on the United States government against a general in court for lies. And I could tell you some other stories, which I can't, because that would violate some other things that I can't talk about. I have never been for this government other than for the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Why don't they take me down? Because they want to know what I'm thinking about, what I'm saying, what my plans might be. Try to use my words against me. I take a risk when I come on and talk to you, and you want to accuse me of being CIA, deep state? You fool. And those of you who say that, you're fools. Was Jesus a Herodian Pharisee because he talked against them? A house divided against itself cannot stand? What fools are on this channel and in this nation? They keep me here so they know what I'm saying and who I might influence. You are taking a risk being here. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And remember, when they grabbed Jesus, all of his apostles said they would never leave him. They'll always be there for him. And they all fled, except one. Actually, Mary Magdalene didn't flee either, but that and John didn't flee. James wasn't there. James was quite far away at first. There's another story about that, but I can't get into it. But if you remember, Peter was there, right? According to the story. And some people recognized him. Aren't you that guy's follower that's being scourged in there? Aren't you one of him? One of his people? Oh, no, I'm not. So you have that chance to say, I never listened to Potter. Yeah, my name was on there, but it was just entertainment for me. That'll just prove who you are. Don't you realize that this is the great sifting? Masses of people, because they want a better life, which is nothing wrong. It is right, it is good to try to have a better life, but they're going to a liar to get it rather than to God. Oh, but they prayed to God for this deliverer, but he hasn't done what a deliverer would do. By their fruits you will know them. So the IC and the FBI want to know what Potter's saying. I rubbed elbows with these people for 28 years. Actually longer than that, 30 something. I was at Bundy Ranch. I've been calling them out for years now. I came out against Petraeus. I came out against McChrystal. I came out against Hayden. I talked about Pat Tillman being assassinated by CIA operatives in the Army. You fools who accuse me of being an operative of the CIA. Or your CIA or Infraguard. Or enemies of truth, justice, and virtue. Fishing, yeah. So I'm done. I'm going to end up with Trump again. He is not what he pretends to be, and he's telling you what he is. He read the snake poem again. We just went through his numerology, and there's lots more. Saying that he's not going to fund, abortions, but he gives Planned Parenthood more money than he ever has so that they can use other money on the abortions. He took money from who and he gave it to Gates, who gave it to Gavi, who gave it to who. He's dropped more ordnance on the Middle East than any other president prior to him. And he's enslaving you with words easy to understand. Prophesy unto us lies, teach unto us deceits. We want freedom so bad, we're willing to go inside his enclosure. We're willing to go inside his big, beautiful wall for safety. But it's not. It's the ultimate concentration camp. It's the ultimate re-education camp. It's the ultimate quarantine camp. This is the great sifting. Not everyone will see. Not everyone. God's going to let you prove who you are. He doesn't have to do a thing. He just has to present the program. Let Trump do what he's doing. Let the evil Assyrian in. Let the evil Philistine in. And you find out who you are. That way you can't blame God for where you end up. God doesn't have to judge you. I often talked about it. You judge yourself. How does God know who should be in heaven? They show up. Get ready, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to go bad real fast. Yeah, they have the National Guard around the White House right now. They're deployed around the country. There are going to be riots. There's going to be a lot of bad stuff going on real quick. Hi, Jesse. How you doing? Nice to see you. It's going to get bad. If you haven't been preparing, like I've been asking you to do something even small, buying one extra can a day, doing something every day to get ready, you're going to be behind the eight ball. And that doesn't mean they can't come and haul you out of your house. But things are going to go crazy. Keep your weapons close, because the enemies know who you are. The Chinese took information from OPM several years ago, and I was a victim of that. I know there were some things that happened to me, which I won't get into here, but they know who you are, where you are, and they know that you're not going to, that you're going to have to be persuaded to go along with their program. They already know who you are, and they're going to send their little probing forces after you first. The BLM, the Antifa, the leftists, those kinds of people. But don't kid yourself. The auxiliaries, the real operatives, are right behind them. So it's going to get ugly. And then they're going to expect you to take the mRNA vaccine. And if you don't, they'll pressure you to the point where you have to take it to survive, to buy food, to work at a job, to travel from one place to another, to go see a member of your family across the street. And Trump has facilitated it all. So I'll leave you with that. Thanks for coming this morning. I don't know when you'll see me again. Maybe Wednesday, Thursday. I'm not certain. I'm not going to really comment on the election. There are plenty of other people doing that. It's just not something I find necessary. I find it tragic, frankly. I've begged God that this could pass, that we wouldn't have to drink out of this cup. But it's the only way. It's the only way. So to you, President Trump, I say it again. What you must do it quickly. And that's all I got, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, choose this day whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I don't even have control over my whole house anymore. Actually, I never did. When I stood up against the government and the churches, uh, I received a massive attack. Oh, I'm CIA. I'm deep state. You fools that say that, you fools. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground. Situational awareness has got to be off the graph. Watch it. Yeah, preserve your souls. That's really right. Which means, the soul is the spirit in the body, and I'm not going to get into that either, but you have a right to protect your life, okay? You do. I would like everyone to be sifted to the good side, find out they're good. But see, that's Satan's plan. Satan's plan was to force everybody to do the right thing. That's what governments are, right? Government, control of the mind, regulation of the mind. That's Satan's plan. That's not God's. God's is that you will voluntarily see the truth and connect to it. Because if he forces you, then you're not really who you are. You are a deception to yourself. Yeah, government means mind control. I just said it in a different way. All right, everybody. You know me, if something really crazy happens, I might mention, especially if the war starts and they start shooting people in the streets. You'll probably hear from me if it's possible, if they don't turn everything down, turn everything off. They don't want to turn the grid off too much, because then how are they going to track you, right? So they have to have it on to a certain extent, but they could figure that they have us pretty much biometrically measured now, so they may not even need the phones. I don't know. I don't know. But we're in the middle of the tribulation, ladies and gentlemen. We're 3.5 years in. We've got 3.5 years to go, at least 1,260 days from the date that Trump came out of the hospital and was resurrected. As some of the Christians said, he was resurrected from the dead. We have 3.5 years from that point, is what I'm figuring. 1,260 days, possibly 1,335. Talk to y'all later out here.